Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the transformation journey. My name is Emiliano, and in this episode of the podcast, I have the pleasure to interview my friend Owen Sammarone. Owen is the creator of Unleash the Knowledge, which is a social media page focused on nonfiction books. And well, during our conversation today, you will be able to listen to Owen and I talk about his page, his journey, about education and the future of education, and many more things related to self-improvement and business. And well, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Owen Sammarone. I would like to start with an introduction, but I think a story is always more interesting. So I would like to get to know, why did you get into the self-development world, and how did that influence the creation of Unleash the Knowledge?
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks Emiliano for having me on the show.
Thanks
Um,
for
you
being.
know, absolutely. So I just spent 6 seasons in college basketball, and that's what really started this growth period of my life where I was going through undergrad, then I went to graduate school. And, if you're a sports fan, you know that with sports, basketball specifically, you need to be working on your game every single day. If you're not working on your craft, the next guy next to you, he's working harder than you, and one day you might come into a game with him, whether that's the playoffs or at the end of the season, he's probably going to beat you because he put in more work or he was more effective about his use of his time. So through that experience, 6 years of being heavily involved with basketball, I started to connect those principles to my daily life. And that's, habit building, having a strong morning routine, you know, being very mindful about what I'm putting into my mind as far as books, podcasts, just people around me in general. So that all started the process within me. And then where Unleash the Knowledge came about was, it's about 15 or 16 months old now. September of 2019, I launched it, and I built it simply to essentially build a digital community for people like myself, people that wanted to read more, wanted to grow as individuals, wanted to break through the status quo and achieve essentially something far better than their peers or whoever they've been spending their time around. And obviously, it's had an incredible growth. You've been a great advocate for the brand, so I appreciate it. And I've connected with tons of great people, and it's amazing what social media can do. And obviously, it could have a lot of negatives on these platforms that we're seeing as we grow with the times, but there's also a lot of positives in terms of spreading a message to the masses in a very easy way, connecting with like-minded people and kind of banding together around one mission. But yeah, essentially Unleash the Knowledge is just to promote learning, to build more lifelong learners, promote reading, and essentially get the big topics and big ideas from books over to people in a very quick manner, because people are busy and they do have low attention spans. So I try to kind of condense those big ideas into short captions, messages, tweets, whatever they may be. I'm growing my email list now, so that's going to be a big part of that as well. But that's pretty much the premise of it.
Great. And now you're doing interviews to authors and all these great people, right? So how did that start?
Yeah, so that started with no plan. I really started during quarantine in March and April when I was stuck at home, and I did it one reason because I felt like everyone was stuck at home, so it was a pretty good opportunity to get in contact with people. People were either less busy or they weren't traveling, so they would spend their days inside their house doing their work. So I thought maybe I could try to get in contact with some best-selling authors or people that have tremendous influence on social media, wherever wherever they've had success in their life. And it pretty much took off right away. It started off as Instagram lives. I don't know if you call any of those early on, but that was the origin of the idea. And then I've kind of transitioned to an actual podcast form on Zoom, just like you're doing, and still in the process of actually getting it on podcast platforms, because it's not an exact priority of mine at the moment, but I need to put a little bit more time towards that. But all the interviews are on YouTube under Unleash the Knowledge's name. And yeah, essentially that's been a really cool opportunity to connect with people that have far more experience than I do. And yourself being a young, high schooler, you're gaining tons of knowledge from people like myself or whoever else you've been speaking to. And it's such an easy idea and topic to pursue, and the returns are tremendous. I mean, you're going to be skipping years and years of your life with the knowledge that you're obtaining from not only the books, but the people you speak to as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'm unleashing the knowledge, right? And yeah,
Yes, you are.
definitely, interviews help as a tool to, well, for improvement. And what has been your biggest lesson through the interviews?
So biggest lesson with the interviews, I guess, you know, to some degree, asking the questions that I want answered, because generally my audience is 18 to 35-year olds. So I'm kind of smack in the middle of that age group. So anything that I believe is kind of on my mind, and I've noticed this through producing the content I produce and people resonating with it. So there is some alignment between my audience and myself. But essentially asking truly what I want to know. And then I've realized that a lot of people want to know the same questions. One thing I do with my interviews is I don't quite, analyze someone's book or talk about someone's book, essentially, if it's an author at least. I really try to peel back the curtain and see what they were doing at my age, what they were doing from 18 to 25 or so. And what were those early steps that got them going to who they are today? Because of course, when you see someone's great success, they might be 35, 40 years old or older, or older. And you see the end product, but you don't quite know how they got to that exact point. I mean, some people might have had to work a 9 to 5 job and then work on their side hustle afterwards. Some people, either were just trying to be an entrepreneur and building businesses, but they kept failing and failing. And then finally they had that success, and the success is what you hear about. But I really have been trying to uncover the information of those failures in the early days, and how they kind of built these habits way back when, before anyone even knew their name. So I think that's been a unique angle for me. Um, and I keep mine short as well, which is all preference. We have Joe Rogan's podcasts that are 3 hours long, and mine are 15 to 30 minutes long. And I kind of do that as well because I think people's attention spans are really getting less and less as the days go on. So I try to condense as much information as I can into a short listen so that they can, take what they learn and put it into action right away.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like that you mentioned, the journey of all these great people. And I would like to know, well, first, like your advice to your 15-year-old self. And well, yeah, that first.
Sure. So, um, I was never a reader actually before I got to college. So when I turned 18 and I got to university in the States, it was like a light switch flipped for me. And it was this kind of epiphany where it was like, if I mess up here, I got to go the rest of my life kind of rebuilding myself and explaining why I did so poorly in school and why I spent my time doing what I did in school, which would have been socializing and then earning poor grades. But when I got there, I was like, this is not going to happen. You know, I'm going to have fun as any kid should, but I'm going to do extremely well in the classroom. I'm going to have a ton of extracurricular activities. I'm just going to load up my resume. And I did exactly that. I joined the honors program. I was a part of the basketball team. I started in an honor society. I joined a fraternity. I did all these things and I still was having fun and doing well. But um, advice to a 15-year-old. So, early in high school, I'd say, I mean, what you're doing right now, obviously reading the best books and learning from the greatest minds. It's obviously there's millions of books out there, and it's tough to get kind of twisted into the books that are being released today in 2021. But there are a lot of books that have withstanded the test of time. And that I would encourage you to read those specifically first, because unfortunately, a lot of the books today, I mean, essentially everything you see today is just built up from something in the past. There's not so many like super brand new ideas. I mean, there's obviously like concepts like Facebook and Apple or so, but those were all even built up from other ideas. So Steve Jobs got inspiration from Bill Gates with Microsoft to do what he's done. He just obviously did it to a much higher degree. But essentially, everything you read in personal development books today have stemmed from something in the past. So I would read those original texts, obviously the Think and Grow Rich and the, um, Magic of Thinking Big and How to Win Friends and Influence People. All those types of books are really ones you to start with. And then other advice would honestly be just to essentially do exactly what you want to do. A society might carve you out to do something, work a 9 to 5, or, you know, have some sort of lifestyle, but I would encourage you to, make sure you're paying the bills if you have bills, or you're doing right by your family. But pursue what, really is passionate towards you, and be creative in your own way, whatever that may be. But we're entering a world where we're fully in it, that we're in this creator economy, that essentially people are earning money from their home, from their phones.
Mhm.
A bit, the ability to earn money is limitless today with the use of technology. So going to that higher ed program, getting the law degree, whatever that may be, and then working for 40 years is kind of obsolete today to some degree. I mean, obviously we need those types of people, but it doesn't necessarily have to be you. So just keep your imagination open, because there's tons of possibilities.
All right. Yeah, and actually, I want to mention two things here. So, first of all, what do you do for a living? How had university influenced and helped you on your current journey?
Yeah. So, March 2020, I transitioned out of basketball, and I got back home, and I pretty much went all into Unleash the Knowledge. That was the first plan. So I've been actively building the brand in a couple different areas, and seeing where it could go. That's one of the primary things I keep busy with. Um, Another piece is I actually just joined a startup as well. So I'm going to be helping them grow the business. And it's actually it's essentially an educational platform that is based around live courses. So, now that we're stuck at home, a lot of people have these pre-recorded courses, which, are all good and well. You get the knowledge, but there's a difference between you and I talking, and maybe you're the instructor and I want to ask you a serious question face to face and get the answer in real time, that you can't get with pre-recorded classes. So it's really an emphasis on live courses, and ideally the instructors are, influencers on social media, or, like professors, whoever really would like to do to it, who has an area of expertise and audiences as well, so they could drive some people to the website. But that's a bit of my time as well. Um, and yeah, I mean, we're every day is a new day, trying to grow and trying to build new things, and keep busy. But I think you had one other. What was the second question you had?
Yeah, well, so some months ago, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, current personal development books in which
Mm-hmm.
they talk about happiness, and he was saying that he doesn't understand why people keep writing about happiness if ancient books already like um talked about that concept or many more concepts, and so there was no actual point in bringing more ideas. So I would like to know your perspective there. Why do people keep writing about all these subjects which are actually covered by other books which were published many years before?
Okay, so first question about happiness, or just in general, why people are
No,
writing
in
about?
general. Yeah.
Oh, well, essentially that's just the way we've been evolving. It's not that's essentially how you learn, and how you develop new ideas. You build upon the previous ideas. I mean, yes, there's books that are essentially ripping the same exact information from these previous books and then republishing them to some
Mm.
degree, kind of modernizing them. That obviously I wouldn't encourage anyone to do so, but some people have chosen to do so. But then there's authors, like I know one that I think we share a big passion towards is Robin Sharma, and a
Hmm.
lot of Robin's work is 100% stemmed from some of the giants or some of the old philosophies. However, he has added his own bit to it, and he
Yeah.
has actually sought out real research in today's world within neuroscience and sleep, and high performance, or whatever else that may be. But then he's intertwining the two. So that is essentially the model. You're not just gonna completely with erase all the past information. The past information is there for a reason. You analyze, you learn that, you analyze it, and then you see the world that we're living in today, and you try to kind of connect two and two together. Um, but and then I guess in terms of happiness, one thing I will note about the happiness, because it just came to mind, is because I read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I don't know if you've read that yet, but
No.
Naval talks about happiness, and he always says, get people rich first and then teach them happiness, which is an interesting concept. But I mean, just like anything else, I think it's learned. I think it's a learned skill to be happy, to be creative, to do whatever else you may want to do. But I also think it's probably a trending topic today because with COVID and also, you know, the downturn, at least in the States, in terms of our political standpoint, a lot of people have this distress and they're probably not finding so much happiness. So maybe people are just riding that trend as well.
Okay, and now sort of transitioning the conversation, which are some of your top book recommendations?
Absolutely. So, you know, one I always talk about that I love because it validated what I was already doing is The Third Door by Alex Banayan.
Yeah.
And that book is just it's awesome that, you know, it's a book about a journey. So it's extremely enjoyable to follow along and the chapters are short and it's kind of like it reads like a screenplay, it reads like a movie. So I really love that book. I tell a lot of people about it. I've passed it along to friends and family and try to get that in as many people's hands as well. I've talked to Alex as well on my little podcast early on in the IG series. But yeah, that book is great because it's simply just the idea that today in today's digital world, you can connect with anybody and you can essentially, you know, put yourself in a position of success if you're willing to have that hustle and go out there and, you know, do the work, but also present yourself in a certain way. So I think that could impact a lot of people. And then back to Robin Sharma, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is one of my favorite books. I mean, I've read all of Robin's books. Essentially to date. I mean, he's got his new one coming out, but he also has some offsets of The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari that I didn't read. Like one is, I think, Family Wisdom, which I haven't gone to, but I've read The Leader Without a Title and the Saint, Surfer and CEO, I think is another one. And so all those I really recommend. The 5 a.m. Club, incredible
Yeah.
books. The reason why I love Robin's work too is because I call it like realistic, fictitious work. So it's fiction, but there's real concepts embedded into it, and you could actually implement them in your real world. And he lays them out beautifully through this story. So I really enjoy those. Some other books, I mean, so many great ones. Limitless by Jim Quick was great this year. Really enjoyed that one. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert Kiyosaki's obviously a top book that has helped with financial literacy. This year, I'm really trying to focus on some more biographies and autobiographies. So hopefully get a couple of those down. But one memoir that I read that I've loved and I always credit towards is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the story about Nike. Yeah, so those are some big books that I love to share and pass on. And I will continue to reread them as the years go on.
Great. And how do you implement books? How do you implement books? Because maybe books like the 5 a.m. Club are easy to apply since you already get these concepts, but books that maybe don't teach you something specifically to apply, how do you use those?
Yeah, so the 5 a.m. Club, just because you brought it up, I mean, that's been a struggle of mine for sure. I've never actually been a morning person. That's like one of the biggest areas of my personal development. I've always been a night crawler and I work better throughout the night, but I'm transitioning. I'm trying to rise earlier and earlier, but not quite at the 5 a.m. mark, but I'll get there soon. But yeah, in terms of implementing takeaways from books, I mean, one, I always have a pen with me when I read a book and I put in arrows, I bracket off sentences or paragraphs, I write in the margins. So I'm always writing in the book. And then the goal is post reading, once the book is finished, I go through all those notes and I rewrite them or I type them into my computer to revisit. And some takeaways might be super practical, like a book like Atomic Habits. It might tell you to do this, this, and this, and that's how you might, you can improve your life. But then other books, it might be embedded into a story or some sort. But I don't think it's necessarily like you read the book and right away you have this full list of things to take on. I think there needs to be a reflection period, and you need to be able to digest what you just learned, and then from that process, you'll be able to see, how you can implement something tomorrow or whatever that may be. But I definitely encourage people to actively take notes while reading. Some people, I guess, don't like to, and that's obviously their preference. But for me, I got a million things in my mind, so I need to write something down so I can retain it and then be able to go back and reference it whenever I, want to do so. And then transferring that knowledge as well to a notebook or a digital document so that I can revisit whenever I'd like and be able to see my progress.
And for example, with, I don't know, autobiographies or just biographies, do you try to implement those in some way, or just use them to have a better mindset and then hope that you implement it?
Yeah, it's a really good question because, um, people think they need to read a Steve Jobs biography and do exactly what he did so I can
Hmm.
become Steve Jobs. But I would not advise anybody to have that mindset. Biographies and autobiographies are simply to just take this journey into someone's mind, someone's life, and someone that's not yours. Obviously, everyone's unique. Everyone has their own. Everyone's going to be different in their own way. But it's that inside look into someone's life and their journey. Essentially, learning what I'm doing so in my podcast, asking these questions like you just asked yourself too. What's your 15-year-old advice? What'd you do after college? Those are information bites that you can gain from biographies and autobiographies. But to your question, read those books to simply just digest what these great thinkers are doing and how they kind of navigated their life, and just kind of paint the picture in your mind how they went from essentially birth to, you know, whatever age they are today, or if they've passed, and what they've accomplished in that set of time. It's less about seeing what they did and saying, okay, Steve Jobs went to Reed College and then he dropped out. I got to go do exactly that. I'm going to become Steve Jobs. Like, that is not the method or an approach you should take. Obviously some self-development books and business, marketing, psychology, all those types of books, they have tactical and practical knowledge where you can implement tomorrow. But I personally read biography books to get an inside look in someone's life and be able to kind of gather information of how they kind of did it, to inspire me, less about to teach me to do what to do tomorrow. It's more to inspire me that it's possible, and learn what they did to connect it to my life to some degree, what I've already possibly have already done.
And then, have you thought of any book you would like to write in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of or big aspirations to, be a best-selling author, like I'm sure many of us are. Um, I think I have a unique perspective just through my own life that I can write a ton about, in terms of not not even being much of a basketball athlete myself, and then being able to accomplish what I have in basketball, being a part of a championship team or two championship teams, and earning rings, and experiencing that whole lifestyle. So I think there's definitely some synergy between what I've accomplished so far and my upbringing that I can share a lot of information about. And personally, I would love to, and this goes back to us, standing on the shoulders of the giants and kind of learning what they did to then do what we want to do. But I do love Robin Sharma's writing technique, or his form of writing this fiction book,
Yeah.
but embedding in real topics. So I think I'm leaning more towards something like that, rather than just writing a book and saying, okay, do this, boom, boom, this is what I did. But again, I don't have a timeline on that. I mean, some thoughts have come across that I should write it this year, but I still think I'm young enough where I have so much more to learn. And I personally don't think I've accomplished enough to really write a book. But of course, those might just be my own doubts. And everyone, if I said that to somebody, they might just say, you're super capable of doing so this year. And then you take Alex Bedine's case. He wrote the book from like 18 to mid 20s. So, it's definitely, there's no there's no age rule to writing a book. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't have too much to give away, but I definitely have some experiences that I think would be enjoyable for someone to read in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that last part. And so, what's your vision for yourself and also for Unleash the Knowledge?
Yeah, so my vision for myself, just to continually grow. My mantra or motto is that tomorrow doesn't have to be today, and your past doesn't define you. What you did yesterday is not what you have to do today. So I'm on just this constant, you know, journey to continue to grow from who I was yesterday. So that's essentially my vision in its foundational piece. But since around your age, I've been serving a lot of others too for free. I've done a lot of volunteer work, whether that was in my church or through my own way, whatever that may be. So that's something that I hope to continue to do, to offer up my time and help others, and volunteer in different ways. And hopefully benefit lives in that way. And then, all in all, just try to be an impact to anyone that would listen, or anyone that wants some advice from what I've been through, and or been able to accomplish, whatever that may be. Um, but I'm definitely, myself and Unleash the Knowledge together, just continuing to some degree reinvent education. And I've been through the higher ed process, I've been through graduate school, and that's all great and well. But there's a lot of things that are left out, I believe. And I think the style of the classroom is also evolving tremendously. Obviously, COVID is showing us that we're all working digitally and remotely. And now that I'm working on this new startup where there's live courses where you can, get that feel of being in the same room with someone, but still be in the comfort of your own home, and be able to ask those questions in real time. I think there's something there as well, to maybe be a little bit groundbreaking, or add to the fire of rethinking education. So, those are all kind of pieces of what I'm trying to work towards. But Unleash the Knowledge itself, I'm not too focused on, maybe, building this into a multi-million-dollar company. Perhaps one day it can be, but I think first and foremost, I'm just looking to inspire people, get people knowledge from books that I've read, share my own 2 cents about them. And if that continues to inspire people to read more and help others, then I'll continue to do it. But I don't really have a master plan of building this brand into something tremendous. I think I like the way it's going right now, and we'll see. I mean, if the email newsletter grows, which is a goal of mine, to educate people through the email form, and it's again, like super concise information, and being able to gather the takeaways from books in 5 minutes or less, I think that could catch some fire. So we'll see. We'll keep working on it every day.
Great. And well, I have again two things to say here. So one has to do with volition knowledge, but I will leave that one for later. But I
Sure.
want to know, what's your perspective on reinventing education? So what do you mean by that? What's your vision?
Yeah. So when I say reinventing education, I mean it because, I always say this. It's funny, and I've been saying it for a bit now. But if you were to freeze somebody in 1900 and unfreeze them in 2021, the only thing they'll probably recognize is the inside of the classroom. It's like the one thing that hasn't evolved throughout those 121 years. The way we talk right now has revolutionized. The way I might send you money has changed. I could do it digitally now. I don't have to take a trip to Mexico and give you $20.
Yeah.
The way you read has changed. Now we have Kindle, and you don't have to buy all these books behind me if you don't want to. So essentially everything has changed. The way we transport ourselves, I'm sure there's just a list of everything. Everything has been innovative, and evolved, but the classroom has stayed the same. Essentially, the college lecture is still, you could look at pictures from 1900, you could look at pictures from before COVID, and it's essentially the same. So I personally think that there's a lot of disruption still needing to happen in the educational space. A company that I admire is Mind Valley. I'm sure you've obviously are familiar with them. Vishen Lakhiani. He's obviously written 2 books, but he's doing something really cool where he's taking personal development and human transformation, putting it online in pre-recorded classes, learning from some of the best experts in their fields, and earning an education that way. And he's covering topics that I think are probably far more important than learning about, Eastern European history, or whatever, some history classes I had to take in high school, or, moving on through college. But that's like one idea that is moving. Another company like Masterclass, I think, is a really great idea. Again, this pre-recorded session. So it would be so cool if they had a live setting, which, would essentially be the idea I'm working on. But they have these experts that are teaching these top courses. And, now you could learn from Martin Scorsese, one of the greatest American filmmakers, how to be a director, like, for a fraction of the price, for probably like $10 a month or something. So it's those ideas, being able to get education out to people in a way more accessible manner, and charging a far lesser price. Because at least from the United States, college standpoint, university standpoint, it's extremely overpriced. And a lot of kids aren't even prepared for the years in college. I mean, I fortunately was, or I had to transform myself to be prepared, because coming out of college, I probably wasn't. Um, but most kids, from my own experience, they just have different priorities and different thoughts about their time in college. And unfortunately, that's a big investment to mess around with. And yeah, that's kind of the basis of when I say rethinking education. To there's far more possibilities to get educated today than ever before, and it should be something potentially done on the go. I don't think you need to be locked down. Like today, we don't have to be locked down to an office building because of COVID, and we don't have to be locked down to a college, or high school classroom anymore. You can now learn off your computer, whatever that may be. So, um, I'm sure there's going to be, tons and tons of companies popping out that are going to shed light on what I kind of just mentioned.
Yeah. And do you think this vision would apply to people, well, to old people and also to little kids and things, so to any kind of people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I don't know about you, whenever you go out to a restaurant or you go out to anywhere, maybe pre-COVID, also you see these little kids with iPads stuck in their face, or
Hmm.
iPhones. All the little kids are on technology more than we are. Imagine if built some sort of fun, interactive, educational game or show and had these kids start watching it. Their learning curve would begin far earlier than mine or yours has started. They might think that they're playing some fun little game and they're being entertained, but it might actually be teaching them something pretty educational. So I think little kids are definitely I hate to say this, but like a market for revolutionizing education. And older folks too. I mean, um, maybe a little bit less, but I think that the range for all these ideas is applicable to 5 years old to 95 or plus. I think it's applicable to everybody.
Yeah. And how do you think that we, well, the, master class and all those companies could merge books and also this new kind of education?
Yeah, and well, I think I think books are still left out. That's why we're probably having so much success in our own way. I don't think I I mean, I guess there are some ideas where people are teaching, they're teaching their book in course form, which is
Hmm.
I'm seeing a little bit, but I think there's more to be done
Yeah,
there as
like
well.
Robin, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like he just put out his 5 a.m. club, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you have, I would encourage anyone who's an author, has a level of influence, to start teaching what they know. Start teaching their book in an innovative way. I mean, the one fine line between doing that is you don't want to teach so much that people aren't buying your book. You still want them to buy the book and
Hmm.
potentially read it, but you want to also, you know, build upon that. So the 5 a.m. club is a great book that should be read because, one, it's a story, so it's enjoyable, but it also teaches tons of principles. But each of those principles that Robin teaches, I'm sure, can then be taught way further and way deeper, which I'm sure is what he's doing on his 5 a.m. club course. I don't have it, so I wouldn't exactly know, but I'm assuming that he would take, you know, just the 20-20-20 formula and he could spend hours explaining just that one concept and then go to the next concept. Um, but yeah, I think that I hope that books don't die, and I'm trying to keep them alive to some degree with Unleash the Knowledge, and with yourself as well. But I'm sure that books could be intertwined tremendously. I mean, even from the college standpoint, a lot of the books that you read are not these innovative books behind me.
Hmm.
They're not like most of the books you read are old textbooks that are super outdated. And I'd much rather learn a business concept from a guy like Jim Collins or Richard Branson than, some
Yeah.
outdated textbook. So I think that most of the nonfiction books that are out in the world should be a part of the college curriculum. That'd be the first like step to integrating the two, or revolutionizing the college atmosphere. I mean, I'm sure there's been efforts to do so. I guess there might be some some pushback or whatever that may be. But anyway, I definitely think that there's a lot of room for books to tap into the online educational space.
Yeah, I like that. And we'll now transitioning again to the part of unleash the knowledge. You well, you earn money with unleash the knowledge through promotions, right? And I would like to know what would be your advice for anyone in the Bookstagram community, for them to, you be able to build potentially a business or just have some part income.
Yeah. So, uh, to start off with that, I definitely think social media is still untapped. I think it's a massive network for people to get your voice heard, get your products out, whatever that may be. Um, and through my experience of working with authors and publishers, I've learned that most of them don't leverage social media. And fortunately, they're free platforms. They just take some
Mhm.
time to put daily work in and grow it, like I've had success doing so. But it's free at the end of the day. It's just hard work that you do on a consistent basis, and the dividends can be tremendous. I mean, if you build, I mean, obviously you can build your social presence by doing speaking engagements and doing other things, but I built my page from zero to to where it is today simply by posting about something that I was passionate about and sharing my 2 cents and sharing some
Mhm.
value. But I would say that the book publishing space, traditional publishing, needs to tap more into social media and leverage these outlets. I'm sure they focus a lot on print advertising and maybe even internet, ad space, which is all good and well. But I think that most people and essentially the right eyes, their readers, are on social media. So to spend time in that way would be super beneficial. So that's kind of where we've come in, where we have this audience of readers and learners, people that are more likely to actually purchase the book, because it's not just a mix of random people. It's actually the right people that should see their books. People that are active readers that love personal growth, nonfiction, whatever that may be. Um, so the chances of converting are way higher than just sending a Facebook ad out to, you know, just a bunch of people within some aged demographic. But I guess to the second point of your question, of how people can, I guess, find their niche and earn some cash, I would just think about what you're good at, and um maybe the podcast is perfect for you. Maybe I mean, you're doing a great job so far, so maybe you're a great
Thanks.
interview asker. Question, you have the best questions or something like that, and you get all these top guests to come on your show, and then you can start earning money through that if you get a lot of listens and downloads, whatever that may be. But it's all about just carving out your own niche and your path, and then seeing what the market has for you, and seeing what the demand is, and then being able to supply them with your service or product. So it's just a process of seeing what works best for you. But at the end of the day, you need to be pursuing something that you're passionate about, because it's not going to be an overnight success. It's a daily grind. Even though I've had a pretty speedy, journey myself within, less than a year and a half, it's still, I personally don't think I'm scratching the surface of where I could go. So yeah, it's just a daily process and seeing what you're best at, so you can provide that best value to the next person. But I don't think it's something that can be forced to.
Yeah. And how would you monetize a podcast? Because you briefly talked about that, and I would like to know.
Yeah, so you can monetize a podcast through sponsorships and brand deals, or even through authors. So if you have a ton of people listening to your podcast, and say, I don't know, here's an example, like say it's a sports podcast, and a ton of people are listening to your sports podcast, and you reach out to Nike and you tell them that you'll, share a 30-second to a minute little pitch about their new pair of shoes or shirt before your podcast, in the middle of your podcast, or at the end. And that could exchange, you're providing them value and exposure from a PR marketing standpoint, because you have the listeners coming to your one location. You're getting the message out for them. So essentially that's going to hopefully drive sales for them, or people to head over to their website. And then the exchange is they pay you money for that. So, but you wouldn't be able to do that unless you have a substantial following, or a substantial, listener audience. So wherever you're at, I'm not sure, but continue working on that. Focus on getting like really substantial guests if you can, people that have large social followings or have accomplished a ton and have large networks, so that you can, you could see that you're associated with them. You can kind of bounce off their audience, and when they see that person, they see you, and two things come together, and then they'll come over to your page and want to listen more or learn more. But I don't know too much about podcast monetization other than what I kind of just shared. um, then it's just, if you have products or services, you can obviously share those in your podcast as well, whatever that may be. But it's just another outlet for you to share whatever you have to offer. It's just like an Instagram post and a caption, but it's just, now it's your voice, it's your face. Maybe personally, I think that's more powerful, showing your personality, showing your face behind a brand. And if people connect with that, then they're, more likely to listen to what you have to say. So, yeah, those are some tidbits on how you can get that going, but it all matters with how high the engagement is, because essentially they want to see a return on their investment.
Mhm. I like it. Well, and now just two questions before wrapping up. So, first, when I say transformation, what comes to your mind?
Transformation, best thing is back to my motto and mantra, is that who you were yesterday is not who you are today. It's just the simple idea that, you know whatever you were working towards yesterday, or wherever you were on this imaginary scale of 0 to 100, and 100 being like your most optimal excellent point, um, you just hopefully continue to rise up. But unfortunately, transformation could also have a negative aspect to it too. I mean, it's not necessarily just positive. It could be, you transform to be a worse person or something, hypothetically. Like, it could go both ways. Just like a lot of the habit books talk that momentum and building a habit can have a huge positive upside and a lot of growth. But also, if you decide to sleep in a ton over a week, that's going to start to compound itself, and it's going to, have negative returns on you as well. But, flat out, transformation is being able to, in my mind, better yourself from yesterday to today.
Okay, cool. And now, finally, what is something you have learned recently or discovered that you would like to share to us?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Hmm.
Um, I'm learning so much at such a rapid pace that it's always tough sometimes to reiterate it. Well, I guess I don't know how recently, but probably in the last 3 to 6 months, I'm learning more about the negatives of our phone screens and our laptop screens. And I purchased these glasses after being inspired by Dave Asprey, these blue light emitting glasses.
Mhm.
So, well, actually, I actually learned about it before him, but he kind of engaged the idea some more. But that's something new that we don't quite know the negatives of these screens in terms of our eyesights, because we're kind of the test dummies, unfortunately. So maybe when we're 40 or 50, we might have some serious eye problems, and it may be
Mhm.
stemmed from these phone screens, and the blue light entering our eyes at late nights when it's just that one screen channeled towards our eyes. But using these blue light emitting glasses, or obviously staying away from the screens, um, or not being on it as much as you would probably need to, is ideal, and it'll probably help you down the road.
Okay, thanks. And well, is there anything else you would like to add?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I'll say thank you again, and check out the brand Unleash the Knowledge. Obviously, the Readers Lounge is doing amazing things too.
Thanks.
But read more books. That's the main premise. And there's if I took some master class of all these books from 18 to 24, from my time in undergrad to graduate school, I feel like I'd probably learn far more. Personally, I would learn more about myself, which is way more effective than anything else. That's why I really like Mind Valley, because it's a deep dive into your inner work, rather than learning about a business concept, or a personal finance idea. I think everything starts within. So that's where most of the effort should be put into. And unfortunately, most of our education systems don't spend time on that whatsoever. Um, so yeah, try to work on some self-awareness growth, and you could do that by writing out your life story, which is an interesting exercise, which I learned from Terry Wade, who's an independent author that I've worked with. And by doing that, you could really uncover where you've been. So then you can understand why you are who you are today, and then essentially plan out the next, near future to either continue down that track or pivot a bit.